Hey kids, so this is mainly for the kids who are online only. It's Mr. Hammond. I'm going to be teaching you how to fill out this form, and then we'll talk about how we can make the actual plans themselves. So the directions are made to do in 2 days in class, but since you can't, let's do it at home. You must first fill out this chart accordingly. After, make sure you and your partners talk to see if your numbers are sensible. You will then create 8 2D planets, 2D means out of paper, by using a compass on construction paper based on the scale factor. And you can use a compass, but we've actually found that rulers work just as well. So I'm going to kind of show you how this works. So first off, it gives us kind of the scale. Every inch equals 10,000 miles, all right? So you take this first number, and then you will divide it by 10,000. Okay, and that'll be the same for everybody, or all these numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So 5,000 divided by 10,000 equals 0.5. 0.5 is another way of saying half an inch. Okay, so the diameter, the distance from one side to the other is a half inch. The radius is half of a diameter. And if you've forgotten what a radius is, let me show you here with this piece of paper. So the diameter is the distance this is the midpoint. The diameter is the distance all the way across from one end to the other of a circle through the center. So that right there would be the diameter. The radius is only half. So the radius would be from the center point out to the edge. That would be the radius. Okay? So to figure out the radius, you just take the diameter and divide it by 2. So you take this number right here and divide it by 2. So I take 0.5 divided by 2 equals 0.25. Now that's important if you want to use a compass. But again, I'm going to show you how to use a ruler and use a diameter. But you're going to be answering all of these boxes in each of these columns. I'm going to go ahead and do Venus with you. This one's a really easy one, or actually, let's jump down and do Jupiter for fun. So for Jupiter, it's 140,000 divided by 10,000. Okay, so let's do that. Put my calculator up here. 140,000 divided by 10,000. Got to make sure you get the zeros right. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, I'm good. Equals 14. That was easy. And then I'm going to divide that by 2. And I'm writing this down here. You shouldn't write this. This is just me trying to help you. Divided by 2, so 14 divided by 2. I can do that in my head, but I'm just going to check. Would be 7. Okay? Now, if you want to be more thorough, you could always put inches. This is inches. And I'm going to do that for all these columns. Okay, so the hardest one I think to do is my next step is after I get all of this column done and this column done, is I've got to create my 2D models. And I think Mercury is like the hardest one to do for a lot of kids. So what you're going to need to do is find some 2D paper. Paper is all 2D, so just find some paper. I picked out yellow, which is honestly not a good color for Mercury because Mercury is kind of a gray color. So if I really wanted to do this right, I do it on white paper and then I color it in. But this is a demonstration I thought would show up really well. Now, the diameter we determined was half of an inch. So if this is my ruler, I've got to make sure I'm using the inch side. If this is 1 inch, a half of an inch would be right there on that line. Okay, let me hold that up so you can see really good. Okay, so that's an inch. I'll have a half inch. So that's going to be the distance from one side of the planet to the other side of the planet. So here's my trick for doing this. You put a point down on your piece of paper. This works for all the planets. And then you find the middle of whatever the distance is. So the distance here is going to be a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go down to 1/2 of a 1/2 inch, which is 1/4 inch right here. And I'm going to put that on that dot. Sorry, I'm going to get my head in this. And then I'm going to make a line. And I think I'm actually going to use the 1.5 inch because it'll be a little bit easier. So I'm going to put it right there. So I'm going from the 1 inch portion to the 1.5 because that's a total of a 1/2 inch right there. Now I'm going to turn my paper. I'm going to line it back up. Sorry if my head's getting in the way. And I'm going to make another line at the 1 inch and the 1.5 inch. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I'm just going around in a circle and I'm making my own connect the dots. The more times I do the measurement, the easier it is going to be for me to draw my circle. So you can see here, I've made a bunch of dots. I now know the size of Mercury. Now all I have to do is do the connect the dot part. All right, so that's roughly the size of Mercury. Yay! Now I can kind of take a moment and actually make it look like Mercury. So I'm going to go ahead and put some craters in it. Because Mercury is full of craters. It has no atmosphere. And I'm going to color it. And when I color it, I don't have to worry about getting outside the line because we're going to cut it out. There we go. There's Mercury. Now all I do is cut it out and I've got my first planet done. I'm going to make a model of the planet for every single one of these. Now when you get longer than 12 inches, you're going to have to be a little creative there, okay? Best idea that I would suggest is to get a tape measure. That would work really well. Or a yardstick would work perfect. Or a meter stick. But then I'd measure from the center point, just like I did with Mercury. I'd put the 7-inch mark on the dot, and then I'd measure out to either side, okay? So again, look over this. If you have questions, feel free to ask me, and I hope this helps you figure out how to do this, all right? Good luck. All right, kids, it's Mr. Hammond, and I'm going to try to help you with page 2, or the backside. So you must first fill out this chart accordingly. After making sure you and your partners talk to see if your numbers are sensible, of course you may use a calculator. You will then have to position your 8 two-dimensional planets by using a ruler the appropriate distance from the sun based on the scale factor on your chart. So now you're taking all those little cutouts of the planets and you're going to spread them out at the correct distance from the sun. So to do that, you have to pick a point in your house or something that can represent the sun. In past years, I've used a piece of duct tape. You can move, let's say you have a vase or a ball. You could take a big old kickball and set a kickball down and say, this is the sun. But some point that you can measure from. I really think a piece of tape works the best because you can measure very specifically from that point out. Let's first fill out the chart. So again, 1 inch equals 10,000 miles. That's our scale that we're using, or our ratio. So to do this, I'm going to take 40,000 miles and divide it by 10. I just said that wrong. 40 million miles and divide it by 10 million miles. Talking about some big figures there. 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I had to make sure there's 7 zeros, and that's just a ton. Divided by 10 million equals 4. So I'm going to have my Mercury, which you guys already saw me make. Okay? And I'm actually going to go get some scissors, cut that out. Here we go, cutting out my Mercury. Well, that's a really good cutting job, Mr. Hammond. Not. Take time to do a better job here. Okay. I want to get as accurate as possible. Accuracy is key. Take my time, not rush it. Almost. There we go. Okay, so there's my Mercury. And now I would have to find my sun, or where the sun would start. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, this whole distance from the sun in feet, you don't have to do it. Skip it. That's not the most important part. So let's imagine I had a piece of tape, which I do, and I'm going to have my sun be, I'll have this be my sun. I'm going to tape this down. So this is the sun, and I'm going to start from the edge of my sun, and it says that the distance from the sun from Mercury on our scale model is 4 inches. 4 inches. So then I'm going to get out my trusty ruler again, and I'm going to measure out 4 inches, and that's to the center of Mercury. So right about there. And there we go. I have my first one done. Now, if I'm working someplace like in my house on the kitchen floor, and I'm going to have somebody come by, and when they walk by, the wind's going to blow it away, I might take a piece of tape and stick it there so it's stuck. All right? And you're going to do this for all the planets. So as you fill out the chart, you're going to take your planets and keep setting them down farther and farther away. It gets a little tough. So I would really get a tape measure, because you're going to be getting like 20 feet away from the sun. So you need a nice long space, and I would have a tape measure so you can measure accurately how far out you need to go for each planet. All right, I hope that explains how to do this. Again, if you have questions, feel free to contact me. Other than that, guys and gals, good luck.